Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. This is another of my free comics from the store I go to, and it's Excalibur number 54. I already reviewed number 60, and I think I was a little too charitable when I said I had mixed feelings about it. That art was weak, but this is vastly superior in the dynamism of its art and in how the figures are drawn. The lack of wonky or creepy faces, the detail, the action, much better. So Alan Davis is our penciler for this one, and this prompted me to think about a couple things about the Hawkeye initiative. If you don't know what that is, in 2011 it was this meme of drawing all these kind of salacious pics of girls from comic books as Hawkeye. And the purpose was sort of to make a feminist message about male gaze theory. And I've thought about the Hawkeye initiative for years because when that was first becoming a thing, it really affected me. That was kind of in the stage where all my professors were feminists and I was heavily influenced by their way of thinking. And it affected me on the level of how I drew, where I would then start deliberately de-emphasizing breasts on the girl characters I was drawing. And then I thought about that and I thought, well, why should that affect me? There are girls in real life who have big breasts. Why can't I tell a story about someone like that? And that there was kind of this, I won't call it a red pill moment because I think that language gets overused, and this was before, it became a meme in the 2016 election or so. But I had a important realization, I think, when I'd have conversations with feminists about these issues, and I'd ask simple questions. Like I'd show a Spider-Man comic where his rear end is sticking in the air, and I'd ask, well, is this problematic? And no, it's not problematic because it's a man. It's only problematic when a woman is drawn that way. Or I'd show an image of He-Man, and I'd ask, well, is this an unrealistic body expectation for men? Well, no, that's a male power fantasy, you see. So when men draw these comics, they draw women with big boobs to satisfy the male gaze. But when they draw He-Man or Captain Britain here with a giant barrel chest, that's men expressing their toxic masculine desires to be a rape culture warrior, violent type. So those kinds of conversations, and then me having my race and sex called out in casual conversations where it should have been irrelevant to the conversation that we were having. It should have been focused on the points. That was kind of the visceral gut level experience for me that said whatever I think, I'm not part of that clique, and I'll never get to be part of that clique. And I'm not gonna kowtow and kiss butt all day, every day, only to say something wrong or word something incorrectly one day, and then have these punks ruin my life. They're bullies, but they're bullies without the decency to just hit you in the nose and potentially take the consequences that come from that if you can fight back. They are bullies on an intellectual and social status level, which in some ways is worse than even physical bullying where you're in fear of your health and safety, because at least you can go patch up a bloody nose or put some ice on a swollen lip, but their bullying focuses on destroying your confidence, your self-image, your joy, your life, your livelihood, your family, everything you hope and dream for. That is what they will take away from you if you don't kowtow to the little group. And that is powerful. And I think the left has to come to terms with that, or there's always going to be this anti-SJW group where we may not even have that much in common. I don't probably have that much in common with Sargon of Akkad. I'm a free speech absolutist like Sargon of Akkad, but we have different theologies, we have different views of government, we have different views of history and philosophy, but the force of a little group which has power getting in your face and trying to destroy you to make you comply will force odd bedfellows together. And I think generally free speech seems to be the one big thing that defines what an anti-SJW is, all the various stripes of that. And that sometimes means we have strange bedfellows, like the alt-right types are pro-free speech because they recognize that their free speech is threatened by the left, and I don't like the alt-right. But if they're for free speech, then I'm for I'm okay with someone being for free speech, even if I think that their views or their beliefs are horrendous. This doesn't mean I'm associated with them. This doesn't mean that I'm supporting them tacitly or directly. It's just acknowledging that the way political coalitions work, people you may like some of the same things you like. And if you understand, if you're on the left and you understand that you are not Joseph Stalin, then you understand the principle that says that not everyone on the right is a Nazi. Okay? That was a tangent. All right. Why did I go on that tangent? I went on that tangent because I was thinking about the Hawkeye Initiative. And this prompted me to think about the Hawkeye Initiative. At first, because of this panel, where my first immediate thought was, tee-hee, wouldn't it be funny to draw Kate Bishop as Hawkeye in that pose and hashtag the Hawkeye Initiative? And I thought about that. And part of the problem with the Hawkeye Initiative is it wasn't that funny. It was kind of a lecture-y meme. Shame on you boys for liking these creepy drawings of women. Aren't they creepy when we draw Hawkeye that way? And the thought I'd had is, it'd be funnier to do the Hawkeye Initiative with exploitative female gaze drawings of men than the first Hawkeye Initiative meme was, because all you're really doing is you're taking the left-wing meme and turning it on its head and putting that out without comment. I think the Hawkeye Initiative had an effect on the comics industry because it was visually making fun of the exaggerated 90s style. And what I think was disingenuous about the Hawkeye Initiative was it ignored the general exaggeration in the 90s style for everyone. And it pretended as if only women were drawn in an exaggerated manner or a salacious manner. And I think from all I've read in that, sure, because they were targeting teenage boys and older men at that point as their primary demographic, they're going to have that in mind when they make the comic. But I don't see it as a evil on the level of genocide or Nazism that we have to rid the world of. That there are drawings of cheesecake girls in comics for teenage boys. These leftists keep saying if you don't like the diversity comics, you don't have to read them. But they're not okay saying if we don't like the cheesecake comics, we don't have to read that. They want the cheesecake comics gone because of their view of objectification and the male gaze. They are not tolerant of things they don't like or things they see as problematic through the lens of feminism, but they demand tolerance for the SJW garbage that's being pumped out. So this art style has examples of mannerist exaggeration, of bodies being stretched and pulled and twisted around, where if you drew a girl in that pose, it'd look ridiculous because the pose is ridiculous. But what I've come to accept is that comics isn't a medium where we want absolute fidelity to realism. Because this is a fantasy medium where fantasy characters are doing fantasy things. And if you depart from reality for a artistic effect, which heightens the total effect of the action and the fighting and the adventure, that is successful comic art. And this book has some examples of that. So Captain Britain is finally cutting loose. He's lived his whole life trying to hold his powers in suppression so he doesn't accidentally hurt someone. And he accidentally killed someone, apparently, which is why he's so sensitive about this. But in this world, he's cutting loose. I love that Spider-Man drawing on the giant card. And he makes his way. Man, I even love this kind of like bug-eyed expression as he's drowning and looking for a way out. And the simple blue color and green color throughout. He comes out in sort of a wonderland world where everything's crazy. And he remembers back to why he's here. He chased Magan this way, and when she meant to transform into a wolf, she instead transformed into the white rabbit and went down the rabbit hole. I want to make sure I don't miss the punch I'm looking for. There we go. This is the mannerist punch I'm looking for, where look at how narrow his waist is, and look at that twist in his back. This is unrealistic proportions, but it exists in this comic to help highlight wham and the twist. It's creating lines and the implied motion beyond the limits of reality to make this fight cooler. And if you just made it statically realistic or 3D model-rific, it wouldn't have that same twisty woomph the wow, that's the cat making that noise. But look at some mannerist painting sometime. I mean, they don't look like comic books, but the reason I use mannerism as an illustration is I think that's the perfect art historical reference where bodies are being distorted and changed purposefully because the mannerists thought that was beautiful. They were bucking the trends of the Renaissance artists, and the 90s comic book industry was sacrificing realism for the sake of dynamism. And the Hawkeye initiative didn't give people that context when showing off like one little panel of a girl with an itty bitty waist twisting her back around. So they'll talk about the boobs and butt pose and how that's sexist and problematic and made for the male gaze theory. But men do plenty of poses where they're twisting their backs around and twisting their legs around and showing off their awesome glutes and their awesome calves, right? And we don't say female gaze. So whatever. I'm not going to get too salty about feminism. That was just a tangent and series of thoughts reading this comic prompted. And this is a great comic. Lots of kicking butt, kind of an interesting twist at the end where there are these two villains who both have sort of nightmare powers, but when they're together, they cancel each other out. So, gosh, this looks like something that Nurkic should be talking about in some weird independent book and not a Marvel comic book. But okay, so this Joy Boy here, he changes people's dreams into nightmares, and the Red Queen has a twisted, reality of Alice in Wonderland in her head. So what's happened is he's taking her nightmares and turning her nightmares into this self-perpetuating dream world that's joyous for all the people who are living here, which was kind of a fun, goofy thing they're doing. I don't get who this character is, and it's apparently a character who would change his form from time to time. They mention him having a Kermit the Frog form. And some of this psychedelic color art here I was digging this. I mean, it's suggesting sort of this antimatter, weightless, massless power, and then something bad happens, and we've just got a few colors, right? So red, blue, yellow. What's the color they're missing? They have a blue, they have a dark blue and a light blue, but I don't think they have a purple. And but they do have green and orange, so it's almost a rainbow, but not quite a full rainbow. The closest they have to purple is this sort of light lilac. They have a couple shades of green and a couple shades of red and a couple shades of blue, and it's a great total effect. And each panel has a little bit of a different flair to it, which is something I got onto when I was talking about kind of Piet Mondrian, simple shapes and colors in the modernists, and then the postmodernists borrowing ideas from comic books to make avant-garde art using that simple color and those simple shapes for inspiration. And I think that's something that's so key to the character of the American superhero comic that they shouldn't depart from that. You should only depart from that if you're doing like an indie comic where you're completely trying to depart from the tone of a superhero story. So if it's a grungy, realistic tale of a boxer, then play more with those conventions. But embrace what a superhero comic is if you want to make a superhero comic. And hopefully that's what we can see when we make Marvel great again. That's what we can see us return to. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Love you guys. Oh, I want to find this. If anyone can help me find this online or something, I want to read this because I'm fascinated by these obscure little collector's items and candy bar and cereal box comics. I don't know if you guys have cereal box comics or have access to where I can read goofy cereal box comics online. Let me know, because I love cheesy, goofy stuff with these otherwise semi-serious characters, and that's the kind of thing I'd love to read and talk about on this, and have a few yucks about, because I love me some mac and cheese with some cheese whiz on top and a grilled cheese sandwich on the side. I dig it. So I'll see if I can find this maybe for a review, because I've been curious about this since I was a little kid, and I never did the Charleston Chew thing. But maybe I can satisfy the little 6-year-old #1 Marmaduke fan who always thought this looked cool and always wondered what the heck you were supposed to do to get it. The benefits of being adult and spending my excess capital on comics I couldn't get when I was a kid. I love you guys. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Why don't you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.